Put your earmuffs on because I am about to drop a truth bomb in terms of Knight Rider. Something that will absolutely ruin, maybe shatter your childhood. Are you ready for it? Okay, if you're still with us, here it goes. There was more than one KITT. I know, right? Blew my mind when I figured that out. Here I thought, during all 4 years of the show, they only had one Trans Am. What was I thinking? No, it's true. Knight Rider utilized more than one Trans Am to portray KITT over the course of the 4 years that the show was on the air. Shocking, right? I know that I've now shattered your life in ways that no one can comprehend, perhaps not even yourself. Now you'll just look at the world and forever question what is real and what isn't. So, of course, they had stunt cars, they had jump cars, they had hero cars. When you think of KITT, you're most likely thinking of KITT looking like this or like this. But in reality, KITT also looked like this and this. In the past, we've done deep dives into specific cars used on the show, like the original hero car, the Super Pursuit Mode car, and the convertible car. Today, we're going to dig into the second hero car, the one used in seasons 3 and 4. We'll tell you about its construction at the GM assembly plant in Van Nuys, California, its role in Knight Rider before it was the official hero car, what happened to it after the show ended, and where it is now. Buckle up, because this is the history of Knight Rider's second hero car. When Knight Rider returned in the fall of 1984, KITT was sporting an entirely new look on the inside. The producers did this as a way to kind of freshen up the show. After all, technology was advancing in real life, so they wanted the fictional superhero car to keep pace. However, it wasn't simply a case of them just replacing the old dash in the hero car with a new dash. No. Instead, the show built an entirely new hero car. So, did they go out and buy a new Trans Am for this hero car? Nope. They simply used one of the many TAs they already had. Let's rewind all the way back to late 1982. Glenn A. Larson, series creator, had fulfilled his commitment of overseeing the first 13 episodes of the show. Executive producer Robert Foster was brought in to take over the day-to-day operations. One of his first orders of business was to get more Trans Ams for the show. At this point, the show only had 4 cars, and they were badly needing more. They were patched together with Scotch tape and baling wire. This was before the infamous train wreck cars were made available to them. So what did Foster do? He went to the local Pontiac dealer at the time, Bob Ruman Pontiac in North Hollywood to be precise, and purchased a brand new Trans Am. Black one with gold trim and tan leather interior. And it was somewhat loaded. Air conditioning, cruise control, 4-wheel disc brakes, power antenna, T-tops, and more. This car made its debut in the first season episode, Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death. And its use was kind of a general purpose, light-duty stunt car. We'll also see it peppered throughout those first 2 seasons of the show once it's introduced in that episode. So what you're seeing here is the very first appearance of what will become the season 3 and 4 hero car. This is the very first scene we see it in season 1's Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death. Now, we know, because we have the Pontiac Historical Services invoice for this actual Trans Am, we know that it was shipped from the factory on November 9th of 1982. This episode filmed December 23rd through, I think, like January 4th of 83. So, if you do your math, we've got about 6 weeks between the time the car left the GM factory and the time it was used for filming of this episode. So really, by all intents and purposes, this is a brand new Trans Am you're looking at. So let's take a look at some screenshots here of the car in this episode. So after the race starts, here we are. You can see that the car has, they placed another one of those kind of squared off overhead consoles in this car. So at this point in the series, if you remember, there's the general purpose stunt car, and that one is the only other one at this point that had that squared off overhead console. Well, here's a second one. So if we can advance a little bit here, you know, from the outside, it looks like your every other kit, really. If we look at this scene right here, take note. First of all, you can see that they did replace the windshield with a non-tinted version, right? So you can see the headliner quite clearly up there. And you can see that the overhead console is below that headliner. It doesn't cover it like most of the consoles do. And if you look here, you can just barely see some shine on this PMD seat. Why? Because this car came with leather PMDs and not Pirella cloth-backed PMDs. So you can see here, it still has both seatbelts, as you can see. They did add a skid plate, which you can just kind of see the shadow of right here. No camera tow bars yet. It won't receive a camera tow bar until later in the series. But yeah, seatbelts, and like I said, as T-tops, they shaved the antenna, pretty much did all the stuff they needed to do to turn it into kit. And even this famous scene where, I don't know if it's famous, but from this episode where sparks fly because someone shoots at Kit, this is still that car that would become the hero car. In this close-up, we can see those leather seats. Again, you can just kind of see a shine on them. You can see that they've removed the seatbelt guides that would have been screwed into the sides of the seats, I guess just to, you know, make it look a little more like Kit and less like a stock Trans Am seat. I don't know. And during the scene where Michael is chasing the Prince brothers here in the Dodge Charger, you get a little bit closer look. Again, you can see that skid plate right there, a little bit more pronounced. We can also see the rear view mirror mount right here. They were probably in such a rush that they didn't bother to remove that mount. And like I said, this isn't the windshield that came on it whenever it was from the factory. That would have had the tint across the top. But the replacement, the company that was contracted by Universal Studios to make the all clear windshields, that company put those mounts on them for some reason. I don't know why, but so most of the time the production crew either left them on or they had to get in here and scrape them off. But all those windshields came with those mounts, at least at the beginning. And in this close-up shot, we can see that it still has its round Trans Am steering wheel right there. You can see the stunt guy holding onto it. And again, the shine on the seats gives it away that it's leather. They did put in a fake dash similar to the one that the backup to the hero car had at this point, where it's just kind of the shell that sits on top of the stock dash, but there's no electronics in it. And interestingly, but I guess not surprisingly, and you can't really see it too well in this screenshot, but this car did not come from the factory with rear defrost, which again, it was sold in Southern California, so I'd imagine a lot of the cars out there didn't come from the factory with rear defrost. But this one didn't, so they didn't even have to swap out that rear hatch glass. So now let's move ahead one episode in terms of production order, the Topaz connection. This car that, again, would become the hero car was used heavily in this episode. In fact, it has the distinction of being one of the very, very few cars that was used to drive up into the semi at speed. And that's what you see here. This is that car that would become the Season 3 hero car heading up into the back of the semi-trailer. And what goes up must come down, so we also see it then backing out and driving past the semi here. And many of you remember this scene where Lauren, Royce, and Michael pull up to the aircraft. Lauren gets on, she's kidnapped. Michael sees that, gets back in, and pulls off in Kit. This gives us probably our best look at the dash of this car early on. Again, before it was the hero car. So if we zoom in here, we see it's got that dash shell that we talked about. but it's all blank. There's nothing in here. It's all gauges, and we can see that it now has a smaller round stunt wheel. In Give Me Liberty, Give Me Death, it had the full-size Trans Am steering wheel. Here it's smaller, but you can see it still is sporting the leather seats there. And in fact, if we advance a little bit, take a look at this. See these round shadows? These are actually the stock Trans Am gauges. So there's absolutely nothing here. This is all open to the stock dash underneath. It's literally just a cover on the top and then this curved around piece right here. And of course, this whole sequence with Michael boarding the plane. And in fact, if you look down here, this is still that car, but they put the crude blind drive seat from season 1 in here because the car's being blind driven, but we still have the leather seat on this side. And as we advance, there, you get a good look. It still has that crude leather seat, or crude blind drive seat there. Then he falls down, and then we get this close-up shot, and they've replaced the blind drive seat back with the regular seat because at this point the car is being towed. And they also put a gull wing in, probably because they were filming from this angle. But there you can clearly see the tan leather seats. And actually, if you look right here, you can also see one of the lap belts that they put in all of these cars. So we'll jump a few episodes forward, and we're now at a nice and decent little town. And this car was used in this episode as well. However, by this point, they've swapped out the seats. In fact, I think it happened during the filming of this episode where they swapped out the leather seats for regular PMD seats. So here we are. We can see the car here. And in these scenes, it still has the tan leather seats in it. However, take a look at this. You guys remember this scene, right? Where Ron Austin's getting away. Michael and Kit go skiing down Covina, in downtown Covina. This is not the future hero car. This is the season 1 general purpose stunt car, the one with the true dual exhaust. We talked about it early on in our episode commentaries. This car was destroyed not too long after the filming of this episode. But take a look at this. We get this point of view shot from inside the Camaro while Kit's skiing, and look at that. It's a leather rear seat. So what's going on here? Well, my guess is, I mean, I wasn't there, but my guess is they swapped out the seats and put regular Pirella clothed PMD seats in that car and put these ones in the stunt car because the stunt car was really never meant to be seen on the inside and it was only kind of for far away shots. So they probably swapped them just to make that other car a little bit more authentic to what Kit is because, you know, there's a greater chance that they were going to film the inside of that car than they ever would this stunt car. Okay, so you get the idea. The car was used throughout season 1 and season 2. Not really a ton. These first couple episodes where it was introduced in season 1 was probably its most use. And then it was just used here and there. Because remember, shortly after all of this happened, they received over a dozen Trans Ams from the train wreck. So there were Trans Ams that were rarely used in the series because at one point they just had so many of them they didn't need all of them, but they kept them around just in case. And this is one of those cars that they really didn't use a ton until it got to season 3. And then, of course, in season 3 and season 4, it was used in every single episode. Well, when it came time to build that new hero car, the powers that be looked over the available kit cars they had in their inventory. They knew they wanted the new hero car to be one that was wholly owned by the studio and not a product placement car, and certainly not a train wreck car. With very few to choose that met that criteria, this general purpose, light-duty stunt car was upgraded to hero car status. It received the complete hero car treatment, a brand new front nose with fog lights, a full hero car worthy upper and lower console, and of course, a brand new dash. Much like Michael Chaffee's original dash for the first hero car he built in 1982, this new one had some functionality built in, where the LEDs arrays could cycle up and down, speedo and tack could be run up and down, etc. Even the 9-inch color CRT monitor worked. Well, at the beginning anyways. Besides filming Knight Rider, this new hero car was also used in some other related projects, such as a 1984 anti-drug campaign,
Kit, I really want to let kids know that illegal drugs are bad news.
Yes, David, it's true. Over 100,000 teenagers were admitted into hospitals last year because of drugs.
Yeah, but I'm talking about kids' futures. Did you know that marijuana can affect a person's physical and sexual growth?
Yes, that's quite accurate. In a laboratory test, female animals treated with the active component in marijuana experienced a 44% death rate among their offspring.
This is much more important than facts and figures. What kids should know is that marijuana has got more cancer-causing agents than tobacco, and a lot of young kids use drugs on a daily basis.
Actually, Michael, the fact is that 1 in 18 high school seniors smokes marijuana daily, and then there are the occasional users which account for...
Get this through your CPU. They don't care about statistics.
You know, you're right. I've got it. Just tell them illegal drugs are bad, so don't mess with them.
Illegal drugs are bad news. Don't mess with them.
The Impossible stunt set commercial.
Kit here was designed to do the impossible.
And I do.
But wait till you see this.
Rough Riders Impossible.
The Knight Rider Impossible set takes on impossible angles and hangs tough. With all this twist and turn and track, this car does things even Kit can't do.
Now, wait a minute.
There's also the Kit computer headquarters to charge up and move out. Hey, Kit, this set is really something.
Don't get carried away.
The Knight Rider Impossible set.
From LJN.
Even a regional Kids in Danger PSA campaign.
Hello, I'm David Hasselhoff, the Knight Rider. On behalf of your local Knight Rider, Sergeant Glenn Young, please help the new Swickley Police Force win the battle of crime against children in your community. Your donation will help. Please write to the Federal Credit Union, 404 Adams Street, Rochester, Pennsylvania, or call 412-843-1360. That's 412-843-1360.
Because no matter what profession we're in this together. Thank you. Thank you.
You got it.
When the show ended in 1986, the car, much like all of the other Knight Rider cars, languished in a parking lot at Universal Studios for about a year. While most of the KITT cars were contractually obligated to be crushed due to their product placement status, the ones owned by the studio outright, this hero car and 4 others, were spared from that grisly fate. Around this same time, 1987-ish, a promotional company called Hollywood Productions struck a deal with Universal to buy the studio-owned KITT cars. Hollywood Productions had a previous licensing deal with Universal dating to 1983 to build KITT replicas for exhibition purposes. Anytime you saw KITT, the General Lee, or even the Fall Guy truck at your local mall, Autorama, or World of Wheels show in the 80s, that was a replica built by Hollywood Productions. Anyways, Hollywood Productions purchased these cars from the studio. They were all missing a number of pieces due to treasure hunters swiping things from them while they lay dormant at the studio in 1986. But fortunately, Hollywood Productions had a solution. As part of that original licensing deal back in 1983, they also received some of the original molds for the show from the studio. Now, they didn't receive all the molds. They received a few of them, such as the original Season 1 dash-on-dash mold, if you're familiar with that, a lower console mold, an overhead console mold, etc. So, when Hollywood Productions acquired these original screen-used Knight Rider cars, they simply cast up new pieces from those molds to replace the missing ones and fabricated their own electronics. Now, many of you have seen some of these original Knight Rider cars, either through us, maybe we brought one of ours to a show, or you've been to one of the museums where the other ones are. You'll notice that they all have one thing in common. They all have that Season 1 dash-on-dash dashboard in them, right? But in reality, by the time the show ended, none of those cars had that. The reason they have them today is because that's the only dash mold that Hollywood Productions had. Sightings of the hero car at car shows are pretty scarce, but it did pop up at a 1990 World of Wheels car show in Boston and at a 1991 show in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. By 1999, Hollywood Productions was ready to start unloading some of these original Knight Rider cars. On October 12th of 1999, the Season 3 and 4 hero car sold at the Cruise Automotive Auction for $35,000. It sold again 3 years later at a 2002 Barrett-Jackson auction for $21,600, and again in 2004 for $56,000. After the 2002 auction, the new owner sent the car to Mark Scrivani at Mark's Custom Kits for a refresh. Now, a number of you may remember on his website back in the day, he had photos of this restoration. A new dash, upper and lower console were added. In 2004, when the car switched hands again, Mark was called back to lightly refresh it once again and make a few repairs on it before it made its way overseas. The car is now located in the United Kingdom, where it's been ever since. Unfortunately, because of the parts picked off of it way back in 1986 at the studio, only the steering wheel and the front bumper are original to the show. Everything else is a replica. Now, we've been in contact with the current owners of this car, and back in 2017, we even made a visit to their location to thoroughly inspect the car and educate the owners on exactly what they have. It's our hope that one day we can be a part of the restoration of this iconic car to restore it back to its as-filmed condition. So, there you have it. The Season 3-4 car is still alive and well. It is the only car not located here in the United States. So, now that you know about what happened to this car, what's the next car we should cover? There's a whole load of them out there. What car from Knight Rider are you curious about and want to know its ultimate fate? Let us know in the comments below. As always, we appreciate you spending your time with us. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. Share it with your friends. They might learn something too. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon.